Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me, Lori? Hi, Sandra. Is that you?
Hi, now I hear you.
Stephanie, can you hear me? All right. All right, I know that we have some more people that are going to be joining us here in a few minutes, but I'm going to go ahead and get started. And I don't know, I've met some of you, but I haven't met you before. And my name is Tim Kennedy, and there's Jason. I'll wait till he gets connected, or John, excuse me. I am an independent school technology consultant, and I work for a company, Wendelin Consulting Group, that manages and does technology services for schools. And so either I've been in your school, or the tech guys have been in your school, or maybe you got this email passed along from somebody else who utilizes our services. I am providing these trainings for free to anybody that wants to sign up, whether we have a contract with you or not right now, just to make sure that all the teachers and staff are comfortable with the situation that we're in. So today we're going to talk about video conferencing software, mainly Google Meet and Zoom. I'm going to talk a little bit about the differences between the two, and actually go over how to use both of them, and like some activities and things that you might be able to do. So if you want to ask a question and you have a microphone on your computer. I know that some of you don't, but you can unmute yourself. This is a small group, so feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question. I really want this to be more of a question answer kind of discussion rather than just me talking at you guys. So
Okay.
feel free to ask questions as we go along.
So Tim, can you hear me now?
I can, yes.
Okay, good.
So this link right here, if you want to write this down, or if you can
Okay.
type it into your web browser, if you want to do that right now. This is just a link to this presentation that I am going through. There's only a few slides, so it's really not that big of a deal. It will link you to some of the things we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get started though, so we're talking about video conferencing software and using that for remote learning. And so just a couple of questions that I want you to think about. You don't have to answer these right now out loud, but they're more just for you to think about as we're kind of going through this. So how large of a group are you going to be working with? And that gets to be important because there's different options for smaller groups. Google Meet and Zoom are really meant for more of a kind of a medium-sized either class or meeting group. If you're just chatting with one or two people, maybe you're tutoring or maybe you're just checking in on a couple people and you want to video conference them, you know, using FaceTime or Duo, which is the Google's FaceTime, something like that would probably be a better option than using these. But if you're working with a class or if you're a principal and you're working with your staff, you know, then Google Meet and Zoom are probably more appropriate. Are you using a computer or tablet? That's important. Computer is easier, in my opinion, than trying to lead a meeting from the tablet, but it can be done. And then also, are your kids or parents using a computer or tablet? And you may not know that for sure, but you do have a general idea of who your audience is, whether your class is one-to-one Chromebooks and they all have Chromebooks at home, or whether they're going to be, if you have younger kids, they're probably going to be on their parents' phone or maybe their parents' computer. So just keep that in mind because there's some differences in that. Oops, go back. And then, are you a Google school? And we'll talk about that, but if you're a Google school, most likely you're probably going to use Google Meet. So because it's kind of built into everything that you already do. And then do you have a budget? Because there is a cost to Zoom if you want to have more than a 40-minute session. They have a free version for up to 40 minutes, but anything over that, you will have to pay for that. And it's not horribly expensive. It's like $15 or $16 a month, but it is something to consider. And then lastly, do you need to record your session? So for maybe a high school class or even middle school, if you are doing kind of a lesson and you have some live students, but then you know that there's going to be certain students that are not able to attend at that time, or maybe you're sick, you know, if you need to record it so you can post it later, that's something we'll talk about too. All right. Any questions so far? Anybody? If you have questions and you can't talk, go ahead and chat. I see. Okay, perfect. So yeah, well, somebody said their district, they're not allowed to use Zoom, and I'm gonna briefly touch on that. So I'm gonna go over Google Meet first for that very reason, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so a couple things I wanna mention. This is kind of what we're gonna talk about. Google Hangouts Meet is kind of the official term, but it gets really confusing. I'm gonna go through the difference between Google Hangouts and Google Meet and why that they're combined, and some people call them the same thing. They use those terms interchangeably. So I will mention that. And I'll ask this towards the end, but if nobody is going to use Zoom, then we can kind of skip through the tutorial on that. And then just some safety, control, and compliance issues that we'll also talk about. So just briefly, Zoom is a cross-platform, which means that it can be used with any device, any computer, and any email. Google really likes to try to contain you into your students and staff that have the same email address, which is fine for security reasons. But if you know that you are going to have to conference with maybe parents that don't have a school email, then Zoom is probably your best option. You can have up to 100 participants. There is a small download that you have to do. You guys probably had to do that when you logged in. And not that that's a big deal, but sometimes there are some hangups trying to get people connected, them trying to figure out what to download or if they need an app, things like that. And then, of course, Zoom is does have a cost to it if you want to do more than 40 minutes. So Google Meet, there is no download. It runs all through the Chrome browser. And it's included in your school account, so there's no cost to it. And you can have up to 100 participants also. And then I don't think I have anybody on here who's a Microsoft school, but if you use Outlook or the Microsoft products, then I would recommend using Skype because Skype is actually a Microsoft product now. And it works better with Windows and Microsoft products. And then just before we get into the kind of how-to of the products here, there's some links there about Google and HIPAA compliance. And I should have put FERPA on here too, because that is taken into account. But Google and Zoom both are HIPAA compliant and FERPA compliant. So there was a lot of concern about that right at the beginning of all of this. And I think that that's kind of settled down a little bit. And there's some guidance that has come out that said that if you are using these products with the best of intentions, then the compliance issues are going to kind of waive that, I guess. They're easing some restrictions on that during this time. So just keep that in mind now. That was something that I didn't even think about when all of this started, but I wanted to make sure everybody knew that. All right, I'm going to kind of hop into Google Meet and Google Hangouts. Let me switch accounts here, just so you guys can see. If I can get it up here. Oops. Why won't it let me get into it? It says it's over here somewhere. I have several screens, so I'm trying to figure out, okay, there it is. All right, so I'm gonna start, let's just say I'm in any of the Google products, whether it's Gmail or Drive or the calendar, anything like that, and you have the little waffle over here. That's the Google Meet and Google Hangouts, two different programs, are part of the Google Suite. So you're gonna find those icons in your list of apps for Google. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I am going to go into Hangouts first, because the reason for this, and this is why it gets confusing, is that Google Hangouts has been around for a lot longer than Google Meet. And Google Hangouts, if we go into that, is more like FaceTime for Google. It allows you to chat and make phone calls, message right from your Google software. When they started adding video calls into Google Hangouts, that's when it started getting into more of the video conferencing software. So if I was in this and I was going to call, let's just say, my wife, and I clicked on this button and it popped up. And so I can chat and I can video conference just her right from here. And that's, like I said, more like FaceTime. So it's just one-on-one video conferencing. So that's originally what Hangouts was. But then from this page, if I click video call, it's going to actually take me into Google Meet. And that's where it now has switched products. And it gets confusing because people say, oh, I'm using Google Hangouts. Well, technically, they started in Google Hangouts, but now they're in Google Meet. And they are two different setups and software. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that because I get a lot of questions about that. And so you can also, like I said, if I'm going to go back to this and go to the waffle, I can just go right into Google Meet and it takes me to this page. So this is Google Meet's homepage on the computer. And you can also just type in meet.google.com and it'll bring you right here. And this is where you can start a meeting. I'm going to show you in a little bit how to schedule a meeting. So if you have a class and you want everybody to be online at a certain time, and so you want to schedule that, I'll show you how to do that in a minute. That you can't do that easily from here, but there is a way to do that. So Google Meet, you're going to join or start a meeting. And again, this is a little bit confusing. If you are the teacher or the presenter, you are just going to type in your name here. If you are a student or joining a meeting, you're going to type in a code here, and I'll show you where that code's going to show up. But since I'm starting the meeting, I'm just going to type in my nickname and then hit continue. All right. So the meeting has not started yet. It's just kind of testing my camera, making sure everything works. You can mute or turn the video off from here. I can join my meeting and I can present. So I'm going to go ahead and just join, show you what that looks like. Can everybody still see my screen? Okay. Okay. All right. So this is what pops up. So nobody else is in the meeting yet because nobody else has the code. This right here is the code that you need to get to your students. Now remember, this is kind of an impromptu meeting. It's not scheduled. When you schedule a meeting, that will go out in an email, this code will. So if you tell your students, hey, everybody be on at 1 o'clock, you sign on, get this code, and then you can copy it and email it to them. So you just go to an email window, put it in an email, or text it to them on their phone. However you want to get this code to them. You could put it in Google Classroom and send it out that way. So that's something that you're going to have to think about ahead of time, is how you're going to get this code to them. This is where some of the safety concerns, if you've been watching the news or reading anything about how Zoom's kind of been under fire recently for things that they're calling Zoom bombing, which is where an unauthorized person gets into a class meeting or a work meeting and starts posting inappropriate pictures and racist comments and those kinds of things. It's because somehow or another they got this code. And so during the frenzy of trying to get everything set up, teachers were just putting this code out on a web page and saying, hey, class, meet here, here's the code to our meeting at this time. And then, of course, that went out on the internet, or they were putting it on Twitter or whatever. So that code is what allows you into the meeting. So you want to kind of treat that with some care and just send it to the students that you're wanting in the meeting, or texting it to them, or getting it to them some way in a way that doesn't go out to everybody in the whole world. So that's the code. They go to meet.com, meet.google.com, they put this code in, and then they can join the meeting. All right, so I was trying to demonstrate all of this, and so I have a setup here. Give me 1 minute. I'm gonna pull up on my phone. And you can't, of course, see what I'm doing, but I'm on my phone. I went to the Meet app, and then I'm putting this code in. Okay, and then I'm hitting join meeting. do have to. Sorry. That's me. I'm trying to do something and it didn't work. Anyway, because I have my phone and the computer right next to each other, it was giving me feedback. I had it set earlier where I could show you, but I was going to demonstrate like what it looks like to have multiple people in. I don't think I'm going to do that though. All right, so I'm in this meeting and all of the participants will show up down here. And there's some different views and layouts that you can do. So if you just start kind of clicking on these different things, you can see what they do. So this will allow me to add other people, and it gives you the code. You can just type in their email address. If they're in your contacts, then they'll just show up. So I can email, I can send it to Tina. You can call them. You know, so there's lots of different ways to add people once you get into the meeting here. There's a chat function, so you can chat with people as you're meeting, and it's probably best if you have a larger group, anything more than 4 or 5 people, that you have them mute themselves, or I'll show you in a minute how you can mute them, and use the chat function just so that you don't get feedback and you don't get cats barking and or dogs barking and kids running around and cats, you know, distracting you. So that you can do that. So these are the different views. If you, I pin myself to the top here. All right. I was going to try to show you a different view. Down here in the bottom corner, I don't know if you can see that, there's 3 little dots, 3 little snowman dots. This is where you can change your layout. And the one thing about Google Meet that I don't like as well as Zoom is that this layout right here shows the speaker, whoever's speaking the biggest, and then down the side, it will show the participants in the meeting. And it only shows about 9 or 10. And then you have to start scrolling to see everybody. Where Zoom pulls up everybody kind of Brady Bunch style, and you can see everybody kind of at once. And Google Meet doesn't necessarily have a good way to do that. So that's one of the drawbacks of Google Meet. But so you can change your view, and then you can present. And when you click present, it'll say which screen or window do you want to present, and whatever you click on after that pops up, your participants will see. So if you're doing a lesson and you have a website or a whiteboard kind of app pulled up on your computer, you can present that also. So that's kind of how you get into Google Meet and what you can do with it. And then when you're done, you just click hang up and it will hang up. And this is, of course, how you mute yourself and how you turn your video on and off. That code, if there's still people in the meeting, you can rejoin and it'll just take you right back in. So if you have to restart your computer or if your browser shuts down or whatever, and people are still in the meeting, you can rejoin. But since I was the only one in that meeting, it closed me out. So that's kind of Google Hangouts and then into Google Meet. That's where I was kind of going with that and how to get into it and what it does. But what's really important is if you are teaching or if you're wanting to schedule meetings, you do that from your calendar. And so if you are in your Google Calendar and you're signed into your school account and you want to schedule a meeting for noon on Tuesday, so I just scheduled that, type in all your details. Right here, it says add conferencing. And that's where you can add a Google Meets. And then it gives you the website address and the code. And if you click here, it gives you all of this. So when you add your guests over here, they will automatically get a calendar invite as well as the link to the Hangouts meet.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a easier way to schedule it if you have a class of 25 kids or whatever, and you want to schedule it for a certain time. You just put it in your calendar, click Hangouts meet, and then they will get the code and the email in their email.
Mm-hmm.
If I was gonna say, oh, so a couple of things. If you need video recording, let me go back into a meeting here. I found a PDF, and I'll actually put the link to that in a minute. That if you want to record your meeting, you have to have your, if it's not turned on, if you don't have a button down here to record your meeting, then you have to contact your tech administrator, tech guy, and have them turn that feature on. That feature is not something that is normally part of Google Meet. So Google Meet is free for school districts, but there are some paid or premium features that your administrator has to turn on, and they are offering that for free right now up until September because of everything that's going on, like a lot of companies. So if you want to record using Google Meet, you have that ability up through the summer, but you need to have your tech guy turn that on if you don't see a button to record down here. And you can have up to 250 people also. That's also a premium feature. Normally it's 100. But I can't imagine that any of you are presenting to 250 people, so I don't think that that's probably an issue.
Very true.
Yeah. And then one last thing, Google Meet, it tends to be a little bit safer if you're a Google school, because by default, it only allows people with your school email address to join those meetings. There is an option that your tech guy can turn it off if you were presenting to people all over or whatever, but that is turned on by default for security reasons. So you're not going to have the fear of some random person getting into your class and and doing something that they shouldn't be doing. You can also, and I can't show you because I don't have any participants, but in this window, if I had a participant, a student that was being disruptive or doing something they weren't supposed to be doing, you could click on their picture, and then there's an option to basically kick them out of the room. And so just be aware of that if you do have issues with somebody in your room that's not supposed to be, or somebody disrupting your class. You can ask them very kindly to leave. Do you have any questions? Does anybody have any questions? If you do, go ahead and please use the chat box and ask me. So I am going to then go into Zoom just briefly in case anybody needs to use Zoom. So for Zoom, you basically go to zoom.us, that's the website. And then it will ask you to sign in. And from here, you can either join a meeting. So if you were a student, you would click join a meeting, and you would put in the code that your teacher gave you, very similar. You can host a meeting, and these are like impromptu meetings, where if you have a few people that you're just gonna send them code in the email or text them, then you would just click host a meeting. But if you wanna schedule something, you go into your account, and if you click meetings, then you can see here that I have my meeting set up for this week, and you can schedule a new meeting. And I do want to show you a couple security options when you're scheduling a meeting. This again is very, very similar, where you give it a name, date, time, about how long it's going to be, and then that will schedule the meeting and give you a code. What I want to say though is for the meetings that you guys, the 4 or 5 of you that have joined here, I clicked registration, and that just means that you have to register first, and I get a list of who is registering. So I can, since there's just a few people, I can just go through and see if I recognize email addresses or if they're from schools that we've worked with. And that way I can make sure that nobody is getting into my meeting unauthorized. You can also require a password, and then you can send out that password separately. So if you set up a meeting with your class, you can send a separate email with the password so that other people won't be able to get into your meeting. Options for turning the video on or off when you start the meeting. And then here's a couple other things too that you can do. If you enable the waiting room, what that does is participants join, and then they're kind of in a holding area in a waiting room until you as the teacher approve them to join your meeting. So that might be, if you're using Zoom, that might be something good to utilize also. And then Zoom, by default, the recording is built in, so you don't have to have anybody turn it on. You just check if you want it to start recording automatically on your computer or in the cloud, and then it will record when you start the meeting. Once you're done with all of your settings, then you click save, and it gives you then the code and a sample email to send to your participants. So there's the meeting ID. You can add it to your calendar, and then here's the invitation email that you can send. And then down here, if you require registration, you can see who's registered. So that's what I do. So all of this is in the meeting section here, which is under my account here. So does anybody have any questions about those two, kind of the differences between them and the purpose behind them? Are you guys using this now? Is anybody using this right now?
I have not.
Okay. Okay, using them a little. Yeah, and this is something that you know, Illinois hasn't come out yet, but I imagine that will be canceled for the rest of the school year, in school session. And so I know that there's a lot of teachers and principals trying to figure out the best way to do this. What a lot of the people that I've been working with or talking to have been doing is doing a Zoom session with something on their screen. Some therapists are actually using their computer and a cell phone to, like, they have the cell phone on their computer and they're modeling things. Like if they're doing OT therapy, they're kind of modeling so they can see it on their computer, but then the phone is also sending the video signal to the parents and students about what they're doing. Most importantly, though, what I've been reading is that the teachers are connecting with their students. They're taking the time to have the students see each other, see their teacher, because right now that seems to be kind of the most important thing is working on the social emotional well-being of the students, and the assignments and the academics and that will come once that everybody gets a little more comfortable with the technology and things like that. But just right now, at this very moment, kind of taking the time to connect with your students. So that's you know, step by step. If you haven't used this software, you know, try setting up just a meeting where your students can talk to each other, trying it out, seeing what works, what doesn't. who has devices, who doesn't, those kinds of things. And then kind of taking
Mhm.
those baby steps from there.
Sounds good.
Anybody else have any questions? So I want to go back really quick here to my slide. I'm offering these sessions through Wendelin Group because, like I said, my main goal is making sure that teachers and school staff are comfortable with the new situation that we're in. So please feel free to send out this email, or I'm sorry, this website address that has a list of all the trainings to people that you know, especially if you have teachers that you know that are struggling. I have lots of ideas and different topics that I'm going to cover. Tomorrow is, I believe tomorrow is using writing, doing writing activities remotely. Let me see if I can pull it up. Writing activities for remote learning. And then Wednesday is annotation tools. And those are things like, how do you write on your screen, or how do you write on your PowerPoint? How do you maybe write some math problems out while you're doing that remotely? That seems to be something that people need help with. And then the last one, I don't know if I'll have anybody join this one, but I did have somebody ask about how to use two screens. Like my setup right now, I have my laptop screen and then I have an external monitor. And when you're doing remote learning and Zoom sessions and things like that, makes it much easier to kind of split your screen so that you can do two things at once. So I'm going to talk about how to set that up. So if you're interested, or if you know anybody that might be interested in that, they can register on this page. All right, and if there's a topic that you missed or that you really want to look at, I do have all of the recordings on my YouTube channel. So
Perfect.
Thanks, Tim.
you're welcome. Okay, anybody else have any questions before we sign off?
No, thank you very much.
All right. Well, I will see you guys maybe later.
See you tomorrow. Thanks.
All right. Yep, thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Stephanie, you had a question here. What whiteboard apps would you recommend that I can try before Wednesday? I teach high school math and I'm looking for a better option. All right, let me show you. Are you still on with me, Stephanie? Okay. Two that I would recommend.
Can you hear me now?
I can, yes.
Okay, that's fine. I've just muted my kids out there watching Jurassic Park or something. So
That's fine. So AWW app. Can you guys still see my screen?
yeah, I can still see it.
Okay, AWW app is just a simple whiteboard, free. It has advertisements, but it's free app that you can use on your screen. And so you can either Zoom or Google Meet this page, or you can send out a link that your students can see what you're writing. They can just pull up this, and it can either be a shared whiteboard, or you can turn it off where they just see what you're doing.
Okay.
If you're on a computer, it's kind of a pain to use your mouse to write. Do you have a touch screen, or do you have an iPad or anything like that?
I have an older iPad. Oh my gosh, I don't know. Brian Colson and I got it through a grant probably, oh my gosh, probably more than 5 years ago.
Okay.
So
If it's newer than a version 2, so
Okay.
You can look at the serial number to figure that out.
yeah.
There is an app, and you can do this from your computer also, but this one works really good on the iPad. It's called Explain Everything. And like I said, it's an app. So if you have an iPad and you can get a stylus, it makes it much easier to write on.
All right.
So let's see if I sign in. And it's very similar to that AWW app.
Okay.
This one does cost, but I can't remember. It's not horribly expensive, and I think it might even be free for some, for most options. Maybe I think maybe you can only have 2 or 3 saved whiteboards before you have to pay. So if you just redo them,
Okay.
you know, But the other thing I like about this is that you can, so I'm pulling it up here. Same thing, you can invite people to it. You can use your tools to edit, but if you want to, you can ahead of time create videos, especially like you're teaching math. So you can create videos and work through problems and record yourself as you're talking, kind of like Khan Academy, basically.
Okay.
And so there's just a record button down here. You click that, and then you use your tools to, my computer's really slow, but to write on here as you're recording.
Okay.
And then it just turns it into a video, then that you could post that video. So it depends, if you want to use it live, you can just do a Zoom or a Google Meet and work through it live, or if you want to record it ahead of time and send it out, you can do that also. And then here's the code that you would send out to share with your students.
So if I do it through like the Google Meet and the Google Hangout, whatever,
Yep,
and I set it up, then whenever I press present, then I'll just present through that site instead.
correct. That's exactly it,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, that's fine. I'm using my fourth grader as my practice. So we usually get on different computers because,
Yeah.
well, and her teacher's trying to do it too, but we're trying to be a little bit better at this together.
Yeah.
So it's
So-
worked out nice to have two computers running at the same time and two people to talk back and forth.
So hold on, I gotta grab something here. Just give me 1 second. If your iPad is too old or it's not working well enough or whatever, I would recommend. So I don't know if you can see this. This is just called a Bamboo, and it just plugs into your computer. And instead of a mouse, you just can write with it, and whatever you write on here shows up on your computer screen. And these,
Okay.
they have some older versions and stuff. You can find them on Amazon or eBay for $20. I mean, they're not horribly expensive, but for a math teacher, it's really important that you can write your
Yeah, I
math
can't
problems out.
see you though right now.
Oh, you can't see me. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
just,
sorry.
that's right. Just get, Google Bamboo tablet.
Bamboo tablet. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm like, we've been a Kindle house since mine are so little, and we haven't bought iPads because we all have computers and Chromebooks. So we kind of,
Right. Right.
it's just one of those things. So
Are any of
I
your
ju-
Chromebooks? Are any of your Chromebooks touchscreen?
no. So
Okay.
no.
Yeah. When people ask me about math and like doing anything electronic about math, that's the hardest thing to answer because it's almost impossible to type efficiently math problems.
Oh yeah. Well, you're gonna like my next question then.
Okay.
So,
All right.
because I've been trying to set up my quizzes because
Yeah.
I actually teach dual credit, so I need to start taking grades and stuff.
Okay.
For the last 3 weeks, I've been just sending out a quiz and then having them write it out and then send it back to me. But I would have to print them essentially to show all of my work on how I would fix things and then rescan them and send them back. Does
Right.
that make sense?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to set up some Google quizzes essentially.
Okay.
I'm having a hard time entering in the math type. So I've had this meeting with you before whenever you've come to Staunton
Yeah.
about different options. So the best one I found so far, it's called Code Cogs,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't know if you know a better option because I have to insert it as the URL to get it to show up.
Right.
So,
Right. Equatio is
And
probably the
it's not
best
great.
one.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably the best one, and it also costs, and that
Yeah.
kind of drives me crazy. What you might look at doing is, so right now they're taking a picture of it and sending it to you. Is that what you said?
Yeah. So I will send them a quiz through Google Classroom that I've scanned.
Uh-huh.
And that's how I've been doing my notes every day. I write out all of my notes by hand. I make comments next to each problem. That way they can have them and download them because I have a couple kids that said they don't have internet at home. So I'm trying to give them a way to have it with them no matter what.
Sure.
And so I send them the quiz and then I have them take a picture of it on their cell phone or using the camera on their computer and send it back to me.
Okay.
But I would like to be able to give them instant feedback of their grade without having to type 200 emails with each student's grade. So I figured if I could set up a 10-question Google quiz every other day,
Right.
then I could get something to be a little bit better. I don't want to say it's faster turnaround because I'm pretty quick at it now. I've spent a lot of time every day working on this now, but I'd like something a little bit, I don't know, that fits better with all of us. So,
And the problem with that too then is you can make it multiple choice, which is fine,
Yeah.
and that'll grade it easy. But if you ever wanted to have them type out an answer in some sort of weird math symbols,
yeah, they have no clue how to
they
do
have no
it.
how to exactly, and
Yeah.
having them use code cogs or whatever wouldn't work either.
Yeah, well, and I'm to the point now where I think I might just give them the quiz the same way I've done it. And half of them that can be typed as an easy short answer, just make a blank Google quiz that just says question 1 is question 1 on the quiz. So short answer ones they could type back, but maybe a couple of my problems make them multiple choice and then just make them multiple choice on the Google quiz. I'm trying to find a happy medium,
Right.
but I just
Well-
didn't know if you know of something else.
Well, and one more thing. I don't know how complicated this would be on their end, but in Google Quiz or Google Forms,
Yeah,
and I wouldn't do this for every problem, but if you wanted them, so you give them maybe 5 multiple choice and then 1 problem where they have to do their work on paper, they take a picture of it, they can insert that into the Google Quiz, that picture, and then you could manually grade each picture and then give them feedback right in Google Quiz. So you're not emailing them.
yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess I just need to try it. I'm concerned because we've been practicing. So I would say I've got 95% of my students participating, and at least 75% of them are good at taking a clear picture back for me or something that I can halfway decipher what's going on.
Right.
So, but it's the other ones that I'm like, I'm afraid that if I have to make them upload it into Google, oh my God, I don't know what's going to happen. So,
Well, it would come up if they have a phone. Do they have their Chromebooks at home?
they do, but I am not getting most messages off their Chromebooks, and I'm not even getting them off of their Google accounts anymore all the time. So,
Oh, really?
so yeah, I mean, I look at them, I bet maybe half of them are still actually using their Google account to communicate back and forth with me.
Okay.
So I've had to learn all of their email addresses and figure out who they are whenever they have their wild combinations. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me think about it. I have your email address. I'll if I
Yeah.
come up with a better solution, I'll let you know.
Okay, depending on everybody's attitude, I'll probably be back to listen in on Wednesday. So,
Okay, perfect.
all right, thanks, Tim.
All right, you're welcome.
Bye.
Bye. Laura, Sandra, anything?
I'm good, Tim. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Lori, it's good to see you. I know you can't talk to me, but I will see you later this week. So, all right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. You're welcome.